These funds consist of $1.55 billion over 2.5 years of Medicaid reimbursement funds and $1.6 billion in budget stabilization funds. The combination of those two funds over 2.5 years is all the federal stimulus funds that there are. And we are putting them all on the table. We're utilizing all of them over this 3-year period. As you can see, in 2009, we used $145 million plus 400 and something million right here to balance our budget and absorb a cut to education to balance the 2009. This is 2009. Here is basically where our 2010 budget is going to propose to spend these funds this year. These are the various stimulus funds that we're basically proposing to use. As you can see, in 2011, we've got the same we got virtually the same amount we're utilizing for 2011 as well. That's a total in 2010 of $1.3 billion. In 2011, it's a total of $1.5 billion for stimulus funds. So I want you to take back from this the fact that we're utilizing all of the stimulus funds over these 3-year periods. Of course, every time you use a dollar of it, like we used $600 million of it in the 09 amended, that comes off of that 3-point-something billion total that we have to use. The last one kind of points out the hole that we're having to cover. As I mentioned earlier, we're used to having the problem of what do you do with the new revenue we've got. One of the things that's hard to grasp about budgeting is if you've got a $1.6 billion hole or whatever the hole is, and you meet it with reserves or one-time funds or even stimulus funds, you've still got that hole. Any hole you don't cover with cuts will reappear the next year, and that's assuming you continue the cuts 1 year after the other, assuming the cuts are permanent. There's a hole there the next year to cover with either one-time funds or stimulus funds or reserves. You still got the same hole. And it's very sobering when you realize that. And let me just sort of show you what we did. 2 years ago in 08, we actually had a hole then, and we covered it with reserves, some $755 million. In 09, as I mentioned earlier, we had a hole of 2.6, and we covered it in the red with cuts to agencies. That's $1 billion right here in 2009. We covered it with reserves. We covered it with the green, which is federal stimulus funds, and then the orange, the top amount, is one-time funds. So we made up our deficit in 09 with these various funds. In 10, you can see by the color, we've got larger cuts in the red. We are still using some reserve funds. We're using $1.3 billion in green. That's the stimulus funds. And then we've got about $80 million in one-time funds to use at the top. So we're virtually using over half of the stimulus funds in 10 plus 9. In 11, which is next year, which is the sobering year I want to kind of leave with you as a message this morning, as you can see that cuts to agencies represent some $2.2 billion, and there is the rest. The green is the rest of your stimulus funds that we'll have. And after that, there is no more. That's the end of those stimulus funds. As you can tell, in 2011, we have no reserves left. We've used up every state health benefit plan reserve. We've used up every pot that we've got. We're basically down to stimulus funds and cuts to the budget. That's all that's left in 2011. So you can see how important these stimulus funds will be in meeting the hole that we've got of some $3.4 billion in 2011. If you want to really worry about something, look ahead to 2012, which is a while off, that's for sure. We have no reserves, no stimulus funds, and the hole is $3.4 billion again. That's because there again, every time we fill a hole with one-time funds, we've created another hole. Remember, every year that the K-12 formula grows and every year that the formula for higher education grows, that's an increased demand for revenue, and we have no revenues growing at this point. Now, there is an argument to be made that over the next 2 years, the economy may turn around and we may begin to grow. And I hope we do. I sincerely do. But you can see what a hole we have, and it would take quite a growth trend over the next few months, over the next 12, 15 months to start turning that around. So we have some very sobering decisions to make. I would just try to just tell you this, that I'm convinced we are all in this together. I'm convinced that, there are some difficult decisions to be made, but if we all join hands and all try to find the right solutions, that we'll do the best thing for the people of Georgia. There's a line from a Clint Eastwood movie, I've debated whether to use this line or not, but there's a line from a Clint Eastwood movie where I guess he was daring the gunman to draw on him, and he looked at him and he said, do you feel lucky, punk? Do you feel lucky? Well, I'm the punk, I guess. And I just have to tell you, I don't feel too lucky because I feel like we've got Clint Eastwood drawing against us. But I want you to know we're using every reserve we can. We're using, I think, very judicious use of the stimulus funds, and we're cutting as wisely as we can in state government, and all the while still trying to meet, we think, the basic human services and the basic demands and responsibilities of state government and public safety and education. Mr. President, this concludes my remarks, and I know we don't normally take questions in a point of personal privilege, but if someone has one, I'd be glad to do it if it's within the rules. If not, I just want to thank you for your attention, and if you need any further explanation on the slides that we've given you, please see us over the next couple of days.
Thank you, Senator.